Hey, good morning. Welcome back. This is Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. Our show is about reminding you how to maximize your life with strategic, focused, mindful choices. You know, we had an incredible show last week with Vinicius Machado. How amazing a human being is he? He's really a sentient, luminant vessel here on the planet, a man doing a lot of good, who had a passion for acting, a lot of humanitarian work, a lot of philanthropic work that he does. Truly an extraordinary human being. So I want to thank Vinicius Machado and his whole team for being with us last week. It just made the show feel so good. What a way to kick off the next 10 years of the Dr. Levi Show. So I really want to thank Vinicius and the staff for being with us yesterday. I want to thank, of course, our engineer, Jarvis, and my manager, of course, Janet Rodriguez, and Tony Sweet, the owner. So we just had an incredible time. Now, this week, we're going to be talking to an extraordinary guest who really, to me, is the epitome of choice. You know, because the choice that we make in our lives determine our destinies. So be mindful of your choices. Be mindful of the strategies that you have in your life, because we have to know and understand that it's like as we make choices about food and about drinking, about smoking, well, guess what? Social choices that we make will also impact our lives. They will also impact our families' lives. And more importantly, they will impact our destinies. So I want you to know and understand that every choice that you make will have an impact on your life. And today, our guest is Gary Kornegay. He is the author of The Preacher's Kid, which is a great, great book. But more importantly, he's a great, great man. And he's a man on a mission. He's a man on a mission to make the planet better, to make his community better, to be an extraordinary father figure for all of us, actually, even for myself, you know, coming from a home that was fatherless but motherful. This is a man who comes from a home that he had a great mom, had an extraordinary father, James Earl Kornegay, who was a preacher, and he is a preacher's kid. So I want to really welcome Mr. Gary Kornegay to the Dr. Levi Show. Thanks,
Thank you,
Gary.
Doc. Appreciate you. Thank you for the
Well,
opportunity to be on your show.
it's really great to have you on with us today. I want to talk to you about your life. I know you were born in South Central Los Angeles.
hmm
How long were you there?
I lived there from birth until I was 26 years old.
Right, and you live
Yeah.
with your mom and father.
Well, yeah, I lived with my mom and dad, but then my dad owned property. So actually, when I got married at 23 years old, my
Yes,
father gave me one of the houses as
that's a great gift.
a wedding gift. People get crock pots and blenders. I got a
I
house.
think that's a nice gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really wonderful.
hmm
Now, what was life for you like as a young man growing up in South Central? Because so often when people hear South Central, they associate that with gangs, gang violence, with thievery, with a lot of badness. But I think people forget to understand and know that South Central is one of the primary places in America with the highest number of African American homeowners,
hmm
and that's not known. So,
Right.
what was life like for you there?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because obviously, when I go about and I do my, community involvement and public speaking,
Yes.
on a global scale, and I mentioned my name is Gary Kornegay. I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and the room stops. People move up on the front of their seats because they know this is going to be an interesting
Talk.
story, right?
Yes.
And I go, wow, what are they looking for? What are they expecting? When I say South Central, their first reaction is gangs and all the things that you
Violence.
see. Violence,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yes.
right? And it's totally there, and we'll talk more about that later.
Yes.
But that was not my situation. My dad actually, migrated from North Carolina, my mom from Louisiana in the 50s, and my dad quickly bought his first piece of property in 1961,
Yes.
and then his second piece in 1963, then 68. And my dad would buy a house. So every time my mom basically, she was pregnant, my dad would literally start buying property for his children.
Yes.
And so that was unheard of or not common in the 60s
Of course not.
for an African American, man.
Right.
But my dad did that. So I grew up in a household with a mother and a father. And my dad being an owner of property, we had tenants that were on the same block.
Yes.
And so I've always grew up in an entrepreneur-minded family. But obviously my dad became a pastor, got called to the ministry in 1971 when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So we grew up in South Central like any other neighborhood, It was Cleaver Town, to be honest with you, in the 1960s. Now, obviously, in the 1970s, things changed.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. But we were basically sheltered from, the street life initially.
Right.
Initially, because your parents, got you in church every single.
Of course.
It seemed like every day we were in church, even though that wasn't the case. But to us, it was.
Yes.
If you weren't in church, you were in the house. And so we didn't get involved in any sports or anything like that. My dad was one of those strict pastors.
And what about was your dad? I'm sure he's one of your heroes. I'm sure your mom
Absolutely.
and dad are both.
Absolutely.
What was he like? What was James Earl Kornegay like?
My father, I classify him as a man's man. And basically what that basically means is that he was truly the man of the house.
Yes.
And we knew it. My mother is 15 years younger than my dad. So
Yes.
he was 35, she was 19 when they got married. So my father was already in his own business, maintenance business at that time, and he worked and put my mother through college. So if you can picture a 35-year-old man sending a 19-year-old, young adult
Absolutely.
to college at Cal State University. So he worked, made the money, used that money, sent her to college, and she became a school teacher and got a master's in education.
Yes.
So I had a school teacher mom and an entrepreneur dad, and then he got called to ministry in 1971. But it was pretty awesome actually having him as a father because the respect was there.
Yes.
He walked in the house and things were supposed to happen, got
They
fixed
happened.
quickly.
Yes.
Are you with me? He didn't say things twice. He said
Yes.
things once.
Right.
And he wasn't abusive. I don't want people to think that at all. He was just
just
a guy.
disciplined.
Very disciplined. If you say something, you do it.
Right.
He doesn't joke a lot. Later in his life, when he got past 50, he joked a lot, right up until the day he passed away.
Yes.
But when me knowing him as a father, when I was, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, he was a very, very, very serious person. He did
Yes.
not play.
Yes. And what
Yeah.
about your mother? What was she like?
She was the opposite, actually, because
Really?
I'm to the track, as you know.
Yes.
So she was the opposite. So she was more of the person you go to and talk to about anything and everything. My dad was more of a, he'd say something once and that's it. There's no long conversations with him.
Right.
My mother was the one you talk to her about anything. She was the encourager.
Yes.
My mother was like, honey, if it ain't going to kill you, ain't going to go to jail, do it.
Right.
That
right.
kind of thing,
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I had a beautiful mom, obviously, and my dad treated her like,
Like a queen, I'm
like
sure.
the queen. He did, yeah, absolutely right.
Right. Now, when you look at your life and how it evolves, having a father who was this preacher, father, warrior, what do you see in your life as a reflection of your dad?
I worked extremely hard to be like my father. Not exactly like him, but to try to be that role model that he was for me and my 3 brothers.
Yes.
And so I'm always on and making sure that, because I have one son, he's now 22 years old. I have one daughter, she's 16 years old. And I just felt in the principle of, I'm going to be the role model father to my son like my dad was.
Yes.
So when my son has a family, he knows protocol.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Also, I want to be the role model father to my daughter. So when that day comes and she decides to get married and find her husband, that she knows what to look for in him.
Yes.
By basically looking at how I treated her mother,
Absolutely.
how I treated her brother, and how I treated her. And
Absolutely.
I'm always on it. I'm conscious of that 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's very, very important. Now, your children, Kristen and Gary II, when you see them evolving, you see them becoming more like you or more like your wife?
Yeah, it's funny because I think we have both. Honestly, Gary II, he has a lot of me in him. His path is amazing how it basically almost identical to my path, some things that has happened in his life, in terms of progression and just growing up being a young adult.
Of course.
We kind of went through the same thing education-wise. It's amazing. Then my daughter, she's a combination of obviously my wife, Patricia, such
Yes.
a humble, sweet person,
Right.
loving person, but also she's a more of aggressive person, which is my side,
Yes.
which is I'm a own my own business dad, I'm going to do this. And whereas I'm more of a own your own business, do this.
Of course.
But I don't have that lady side, that mother side that obviously the woman brings to the household.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when I hear you talk, you never sound preachy. You sound like you're just having this conversation.
Yeah. Mhm.
Have you ever thought about the ministry when you were growing up? How did you go from from young man to entrepreneur versus following the steps of your father into ministry?
Well, that's the thing. My dad was not the type of pastor that would push religion on us.
So he wasn't pushy.
Oh, no. My dad was probably opposite of that. He was 100% dad.
Right.
So when we came home, it was not sit at the kitchen table, open up the Bible, and just kept it going. When he came home, he was 100% dad all the time.
Yes.
But obviously, because him being a pastor, we always had somebody in our house that he was ministering to.
Yes.
I don't remember a Sunday where there was not a person in our house.
Really?
So obviously, my whole entire life in that house on Sundays, somebody was coming home with us. Whether somebody who had just walked to the church who needed some help, maybe they had an addiction to alcohol or drugs or some personal problems, or homeless, and maybe in my dad's car coming to our house having dinner, or it'd be one of the church members coming to our dad's house getting counseling.
So he was a real active minister. He didn't just preach at the pulpit. He actually came and he embraced the community with love and with activism and with advocacy.
Yeah, he didn't go by the protocol of the pulpit pastor. He was more of he wasn't an evangelist, wasn't on the corner preaching. He's the kind of guy, he'd hang out with you and he wouldn't throw the Bible at you.
Right.
You'd forget he was a pastor. Okay. He was that kind of person. He just blends right in with the community. But at the same time, too, he was the kind of person where if there was something going on in the community,
yes,
he's involved in it. Okay, so if there's any police activity, anything going on in the community, whether it be racial issues, my dad was actually trying to be on the front line. Not as an activist, he was not pushed out like that, but he was just more of if it's happening and he's there, right? If there's a person that could fix it, he'd be the first one in line to fix it.
He would be involved. So he really was a pillar of the community.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, I want to hear about life for you and your brothers because you were the middle child.
Yes.
And I want to hear about some of the decisions that you made that were maybe not the best in your early life and how you transitioned from making those types of decisions to better decisions to become the entrepreneur that you are today. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, you're getting to a real situation here, tough situation conversation, because I very rarely have this conversation, but I've been spoke to you, and I'll be very candid with you and very transparent with you today.
Yes.
But having a great mom, great dad, and being preachers' kids.
Yes.
As South Central switched over from being just L.A. to South Central,
right?
The stigma that actually when it was switching over in the 70s,
yes,
then it became a challenging thing for us as 13, 14-year-old boys because now people want to test the preachers' kids,
right?
People.
So it's more difficult to stay on track.
Absolutely, because now you're in the real world. You're going to middle school and high school with people that have a different set of rules.
Right. And they have a different agenda for your life also.
That's right. Absolutely right. And so then people start challenging you, because you're a preacher's kid,
right.
We use the word bully today, but back then it was just like you're a preacher's kid, and if they're going to talk about somebody at school, it's probably going to be you first.
Yes.
Because thinking that you would just take it.
Right.
Right. And that did go on for about a little bit, okay?
Right.
And we had this great life. So picture this beautiful family, homeowners,
yes,
dad's a pastor, mom's a school teacher, and we used to drive down the street, Dr. Levi, and we would see the thugs hanging out.
Yes.
And I would go, wow, I would never do that. Those guys are separate from us.
Right.
Like they're over there.
Yes.
That's not us.
Right.
We're the preacher's kids. And then one day I was standing in front of my dad's church. I was 16 years old. It was a Saturday night. We had a special service, and I'm standing there. And my dad always told us, come inside the church, don't hang out in front, right?
Right.
But I'm not thinking that. I'm just a preacher's kid. My whole life, everybody's good, right?
Right.
The universe is good, I'm good, right?
Absolutely.
And I happened to walk outside at the wrong time. There was two gentlemen that were burglarizing the cars in the parking lot.
Yes.
And I just walked out for a second. My dad told me, don't go outside, but I did.
Yes.
I walked outside, and I caught their eye. They caught my eye. I turned back in to go inside the church. And I didn't see another guy, and he knocked me unconscious.
Really?
That's absolutely right. And that shifted. That took me from being the if I use this term, the Cosby household.
Yes.
That black family.
Yes.
Right, to being
the Huxtables. Went from the Huxtables to something very different.
Yeah. It went to the wow, man. Did I just get violated?
Right.
Like
right.
I'm knocked out. I'm in the hospital.
Right.
I spent the whole weekend in the hospital. I can't trust anybody anymore.
Right.
So now we're going to take all this church stuff out. We're going to take all this happy life out.
Right.
And we're going to meet the streets where the streets want to meet us at.
Right. So if it brought violence, you were going to bring violence. If it
Absolutely.
brought pain, you were going to bring pain.
That's right. Exactly. And me and my three brothers, we played that role very well.
Right.
You're not going to take advantage of us ever again.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what did your father and mother say as they saw this transformation happening in your life and in your psyche and socially? Because your whole circle of friends will change with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great question. My dad passed away in 96, and I like to hope to ask him that question.
Right.
But I kind of know that he changed from being that strict father, because we were going totally another direction,
yes,
to being quiet I think he was thinking, like, what did I do wrong? He never addressed it. So it was like, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm a pastor. He was like more of a just like, man, my boys,
And what's going on with them?
what's going on? So I could see in his head the worry, my sons are now those guys.
The ones that we used to pass on the corner and marginalize,
Yeah.
but now my sons are becoming them.
Yeah, 100% of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, your brothers, did they make as bad a choice as you made also? They both did the same thing, or they did less?
Oh no, they turned it up. Yeah, no, they they went to a whole nother level. The stuff that I was doing, I was not a violent person.
Right.
I'm not a person that bully anybody. I'm not gonna
Right.
get in a fist fight with anybody unless I have to defend myself.
Yes.
But my brothers were totally opposite. My oldest brother James, went off to the Marine Corps.
Yes.
Okay, because obviously he had already started messing up in school, like probably in middle school, and so he was just that defiant kid. And then he went off to the Marine Corps, came from the Marine Corps. And just at that point, now he's a whole nother person because now he has the
skills
skills
to really enforce.
Exactly. And he's probably on a good day 5'9". He's
Yes.
the smallest one of the four of us, believe it or not. But he's the oldest one.
Yes.
So he has my dad's kind of assertiveness and
Yes.
energy. Like I don't play.
Right.
Right. And he was the enforcer. He was the one that, well, basically, if there's something went down, he's going to be on the front of it. You're not
Right.
bothering my brothers.
Right.
Right.
So he's going to protect everybody.
Oh yeah, he was the one that's like, he basically took it to a whole nother level.
What about your baby brother?
Yeah, well, I have a brother Dale who's right under me, so it's four of us. Dale, he got involved in the gang activity life.
Yes.
That was something that my older brother James was not involved in initially, but Dale did. And Dale's 5 years younger than me, 6 years younger than my brother James.
Yes.
So we always looked at him like little brother.
Right.
Like we're gonna be out, me and James doing our thing, just handling the neighborhood. But when he would come around us, man, go home,
Yes.
go
Yes.
home, right?
So you really wanted to protect him and keep him out of that life.
Well, we just wanted to keep him away from us. We
I
we
understand.
we had no clue that he was already in that life at 14, 15.
Right.
Because this is my little brother.
Right.
And then one day my mom came home and said, your brother got kicked out of school for some gang activity.
Yes.
I go, man, he's just going through something.
Right.
And I look at his homework or his folder and he had all this gang writing on it. And the way he's writing, I go, that ain't a guy who just got involved in gangs.
This has been happening for a while.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then we try to go to him and go, what are you doing, man? You're involved in gangs?
Right.
Like, we don't do gangs.
Right.
You with me? We're out there, but we don't do gangs.
Right.
And so at that point, he was too far in at that point.
To pull him back.
To pull him back at that moment. And then finally, we decided my older brother James decided to pull him into what he was doing, which is still illegal, but it wasn't mayhem. It was
Right.
just strictly about making money.
Right.
And so my brother went to my mom and dad, if you can believe this conversation, older James, my brother, going to my dad and saying, Dad and Mom, Dale's involved in gangs. He's going to either get killed or go to jail. Let him come work for me. All right. And my brother James at that time was actually in the drug business.
Yes.
So come work for me. And if you can picture a Christian mom and dad going, okay, but if something happened, it's on you.
Right.
But they did say okay.
They said okay. Both parents.
Yeah. They didn't say, what are you doing? Both of you guys are crazy.
Right.
They said
Right.
okay because they didn't want something to happen to Dale.
And do you think in retrospect that their okay was really okay, protect my son, or was their okay was, well, let him do that just to at least live. We want him to be around. What do you think that okay really meant? Because it had to hurt your mom's heart and your father's heart to say okay to that.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think that okay really meant James being the oldest one, who's already been out there doing he was doing for years at that point. He was like more of a, okay, James, okay, because he's very aggressive. My
Yeah.
brother's not like mom and dad.
He's more like your dad,
he's
more intense.
Mom and dad, this guy's out here doing this. He got to come stay with me. You can't let him be on the street. They'll kill him on the streets.
Right.
That kind of aggressiveness.
Very
so parents
intense.
like, go, go, go.
Right,
Very intense. So I think Dale kind of went with James because my mom and dad felt, okay, well, he's out there doing what he's doing. We've been hearing about what he's doing, but we prefer that he actually be with.
But what about this now? As you saw your brothers making these decisions, what gave you the insight to say, I will not do that. I will make another choice. I will have a different destiny. I want to know, where did you go? Was that faith-based? Was it from not wanting to disappoint your mom and dad? Was it an internal drive that you felt like, you know what? I will be different. I will change the legacy of my family. I want to know, how did you do that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had my season. I had my season of doing crazy stuff too that I wrote about, obviously, as you know, in the
Yes.
book.
Yes.
Before they even got involved to any of that stuff.
Right.
Are you with me? So I was the first one technically out doing things I'm not proud of
Yes.
before any one of them. James in the Marines.
Right.
Okay, so he was serving our country. I was already doing stuff on the streets.
Right.
Okay. But that was my little secret thing I was doing. I was not involving any of my brothers. That was
Right.
my little, as I
Your
can use this
thing.
term, my hustle.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I was making money doing that. All right. And people in the neighborhood knew about what I was doing. Are you with me? But I was not the kind of guy out there with a crew, which is me by myself.
Right.
All right.
And
And
were your mom and dad aware of that too?
yeah, they heard about it. I actually got caught.
Right.
Yeah, and then my dad chastised me, obviously, for when I got caught. And he basically said, I've been hearing about what you've been doing for years. And I didn't know that he knew, because he never told me,
Right.
for years. He said, you know what your problem is, Gary? He says, you tell everybody everything. I've been hearing about that for years. You know what you need to do? Never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing,
Powerful statement.
right?
Yes.
And I took like, is he telling me to continue to do it?
Right,
But just be,
Do the right thing.
do the right thing, but like don't tell about your business, right? I go, my dad is a pastor, but he's kind of like, he's got to that point now. He's like, I'm not gonna spank you.
No.
I'm not gonna put your punishment. You're now 16 years old. I'm just telling you, if you're gonna do that, stop telling people what you're doing, right? So I had a stint of doing that for about 2 or 3 years of my life. Got kicked out of high school. My life went really in a spiral, downward spiral, once that young man, that other two guys jumped me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I went from being an A student to being literally ditching school, the whole deal. I just went to the other side.
So that event was so traumatic for you psychologically and socially that you truly became someone different.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, today you would label it as PTSD,
Exactly.
But I didn't know what that was, I didn't trust anybody. If I saw anybody who is a man and he's black, I'd cross the street. Okay, so
Yes.
this is all stuff I was doing just in my head. I was like,
Right.
oh, that's that guy. But it wasn't even that guy.
Right.
That's that guy. That's that guy.
Everybody
looked like that guy.
became that guy.
Everybody
for you,
became
though.
that guy.
Right.
Absolutely. So I went inward and acted out inward. I never ran with a crew because I don't trust guys.
Right.
Okay. And I had my moment, and then my dad, I got caught,
Yes.
and my father had the conversation with me, and I felt like, wow, they never knew that I was doing that. So now I disappointed my father. He found out.
Yes.
So now I'm the bad kid, and then I try to correct that. I checked myself back in school. My brother, believe it or not, James, played a major role in where I'm at today. That's the honest God truth. When he was in the Marines, I got kicked out of school for like the last time.
Yes.
He found out about it, called me, and said, hey, when you turn 18, you check yourself back in school. Because my dad took me out of school, Dr. Levi.
He took you out.
Like, you're done. You're not taking school serious. You're wasting my time. I'm sending you out there to the valley, to these suburban schools. You're messing up. That's it. You're out of school.
Done.
You're done. No more school. When I turned 18, my brother called me and said, check yourself back in school. And I checked myself back in Mangalards High School in South Central LA. Had a culture shock, believe it or not, because I had never been around that many African Americans.
Right.
I've been in predominantly white schools since I was in 6th grade.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so I'm a culture shock, but at the same time, I felt at home.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
man, this is awesome, right?
Exactly.
And I walked out of there, got straight A's, got myself back on track. Graduated a year later, obviously, because I was held out a year.
Right.
And then I got myself in trouble again at Mangalards High School. Just a moment, I got into a big disagreement with this teacher, where the police had to come. It was a real bad situation for her. And the police had to come, take me out of school, handcuff me, walk me to the principal's office to kick me out of school as a grown man. When you're 18, they don't call your parents.
That's true.
You actually go to jail.
Right. Right.
Okay?
Right.
So they would take me in basically to the principal's office to kind of exit me out of school forever.
Wow.
And I had a breakdown in front of the dean, and the dean, I just said, the teacher told me I was going to fail. I need this class to graduate, and blah, blah. And I just went off on the teacher. Said, Gary, the only way you could fail, if you don't try.
This is true.
I'm her boss. If you go back to that classroom and you do your work, I will not let her fail you. And I'm expecting him to send me to jail.
He wasn't doing that. He was in your corner.
He sent me back to class, and he
Yes.
told me the game. I'll never let her, if you never give up, I won't let her fail you.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, and that changed my life.
So that was a real paradigmatic shift for you, and
Back
saying,
to-
I can now do what I want. I
That's
can
right.
achieve.
That's exactly right. He inspired the you-know-what out of me that day.
Really did.
Oh, absolutely.
What allows you to maintain that type of what I call social sobriety, meaning that I want to make a difference. I want to do the right thing for the community, for my family. What keeps you in that frame without swaying to do something inappropriate or illegal or immoral?
Well, I think the thing is that I wanted to be an example. This is before now, I got married at 23 years old. We've been married now almost 30 years.
Right, that's your wonderful wife, Patricia.
Patricia, absolutely. Been together 33 years.
Right.
After high school, a year after high school, we started dating, got married at a young age. So, as being a husband, that immediately takes you out of the game in most cases.
Right.
So what happens is, when I would even try to play around with the street life,
Right.
because I'm a part of it.
Right.
If I see 30, 40 guys in the neighborhood and they just hang out in the corner, I'm going to stop and talk to these guys. We grew up together.
Yes, you know them.
They're just my friends.
Right.
My brothers would turn the corner, older and younger. Go home.
They knew.
How you going to tell me to go home? I'm grown.
Right.
I'm married.
Right.
Exactly. I'm going to call your wife, go home. So my brothers would call my wife and go, Gary's out here on the corner hanging out?
They were really trying to save you from the streets that were trying to pull you back
That's
in.
right. You're married. You cannot be out here. I'm not even doing nothing, dude. We're just hanging out. I don't care. Go home.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Major transitions for you in life. I mean, getting married, just leaving the gangs, getting out of school, graduating. Now you're here.
Mm-hmm.
As an entrepreneur, what do you think are your greatest assets?
Hard work.
Yes.
Self-motivation. Honest to God truth. My greatest asset, my dad taught us how to work.
Right.
Okay? Physical work. Manual labor.
Right.
Okay? Now, obviously, I transitioned that into thinking work.
Of course.
Versus the manual labor part once I got into the financial
Which
services.
is still as intense.
Absolutely, if not more intense.
Right.
Okay? Because, the physical work, you shut off.
Right.
You stop working, you go home.
Right.
You chill. The mental work, you're always on.
Always.
You're always on. So it takes a lot more discipline with the mind than it does actually with the body.
Absolutely. Now, why did you choose to be a fiscal manager and to work in financial services? What was the crux of you that said, I want to do that, versus not becoming a coach or not being a part of like Boys Club or some other organization? What was the push there?
Well, actually, I didn't choose that. It actually chose me. Because my brothers are all involved in gangs and drugs, at that time,
Yes.
in 1986, 87-ish. And that was literally, I spent most of my time, I'm not going to lie to you, in the county jail, bailing my brothers out, want to get out, want to go in.
Right.
So
What
it's
did
been
that
a
do for
cycle.
you when you would go down there? That you're becoming more and more successful as an entrepreneur, as a community leader, as an advocate, and then you have to go in your three-piece suit
That's
and
right.
your Rolls Royce. You have to go there and do that. What did that do for you psychologically?
Well, for me, it was kind of like I lived two lives. I'm not going to lie to you. I literally felt like I lived because I'm around all these successful people in the financial industry. I can't tell them my business.
Right.
Because then they're going to stereotype me and put me in that box they already see as an African-American South Central LA.
Yes.
So they don't know I'm on stage speaking in front of a couple hundred people.
Right.
And I'm getting pages back when we had pagers
Right.
from the streets saying this is what's going on right now. You need to hurry up and get down here. Right. So I get off the stage being Mr. Positive, shaking hands and hugging babies.
And head back down to South Central.
Go home, take off my suit, put on all black. Okay, this is nighttime stuff. Yeah. Put on all black and go to the neighborhood, right?
Yes.
Looking for my brothers. Looking for my brothers. Looking for whatever happened on that street that day, whether it was a killing, whether it was the cops raided the whole block and your brothers went to jail, going to my mother's house, waking my dad up because he needed to get up because we needed to use his house to bail out my brothers. It felt like I did that for years. It probably was only like a 2 or 3, but it felt like a decade of just constantly. Then my wife's brothers, same exact thing. Same exact thing. Got caught up into the gang life.
Right.
So my wife, the woman I'm married to, her brothers are living the same life as my brothers. So if you can imagine.
So you have these mirror images in each family.
Yeah.
Now you're bailing out your family and also having to bail out her family, because her family is your family. It's your wife. So all the families are together.
Well, absolutely. That's right. Our family is really bonded together very quickly, even though they were from different neighborhoods.
Right.
Okay. We're a family now, so ain't no drama going on between us.
No.
Okay. We're from different neighborhoods. So that wasn't an issue. My wife's family was actually the opposite. We didn't have to deal with them. But my wife never came and said, can you help me bail out my brothers?
But you would do it because it's your wife. You want her to have peace.
Well, yeah, I would if she had asked me.
Right.
But they were more of no, we have our own business. Okay. I felt like my family was putting a strain on my marriage.
Yes.
Like my wife is being tested. She married into the wrong family because we got drama 20 hours a day. At least it felt like that.
Yes.
But my wife was just, the greatest wife ever.
Really?
I got to go bail my brothers out. I need this amount of money. whatever. Okay. But she was always telling me, hey, where you going?
Yes.
You know, I go, honey, I got to go to L.A.
Right.
Don't go to L.A. You know, I go, honey, I got to go.
Right.
It's 11 o'clock at night. You know, I got to get up out of bed and go to South Central LA and handle this business.
Right.
I know in a conscious mind, you go, that don't make sense, Gary. You're making money. You're successful.
Right.
You're going to go back to the hood at 1 o'clock in the morning.
To do what?
To do what? Whatever my brothers needed me to do.
You would do it.
It don't even matter.
Right. So where do you think your wife found the strength to, one, stay with you and to continue to maintain her love and respect for you when she knew this other side of you that was not in the light, was not the spiritual great man that she married, but was just the contrary, was someone who was doing something that wasn't the best socially or legally? What do you think she found that strength? 'Cause she sounds like an amazing woman.
A praying woman.
Yes.
A praying woman. That's what you got. You got a woman that says, go do it because you're going to do it anyways, Gary.
Right.
Okay? So I didn't ask for permission.
Right.
I wasn't that kind of guy.
Right.
Okay?
You are the head of the household.
Yeah.
You're gonna
This is
do
what I'm
you're
going to
gonna
do, and let's not get into an argument over this. I got to handle my business.
Right.
So I think that she's more of a, okay, he's going to do it anyways. All right?
Right.
But see, I never brought drama to my house, number one. Okay? I was never in a situation where I was going to get arrested.
Yes.
Okay. If it happened, it was because I was trying to help somebody.
Right.
So I wasn't leaving the house to get in drama. I was leaving the house to fix a problem.
Right.
That makes
And
sense.
you said you never brought it home.
No, never.
Because you never felt like you endangered your wife or your children.
No. But by the time my kids were born, my brothers were already, either in prison, okay, or getting their life together.
Right.
So we had children late. So it was 6 years after married before we had our first child. And
Yes.
in that 6-year period of time, things had kind of cleaned itself up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Then my dad died a couple of years later.
Yes.
And so it kind of started moving in the right direction again.
Right. With the passing of your father, do you feel like when he passed that you were at peace with him and everything was spoken and everything was in a good place with your relationship with him?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I don't have one guilt in my heart because my dad got a chance to see one of his sons at that time get on track. At that point, I was already a public speaker.
Right.
You're
doing a lot. You were successful.
I'm doing a lot, yeah. My dad is my number one fan, my mom and dad. I go speak somewhere, they're in the audience.
Right.
Right. So they saw a lot of that success, So I think
I'm sure that gives you a lot of goodness in yourself, just to know that your father, James Earl Kornegay Sr., had a chance to see and witness the beauty of your success along with your mom. They both had a chance to see that you made that transition from doing things that were maybe not the best choices, but then you suffered the consequences for some of them, but also you enjoyed the beauty of the better choices that
That's
you
right,
made.
yes, yeah. I think one of the greatest things I ever made was getting married to Patricia Kornegay at age 23. That sounds got true. If I was not married, I promise you, my life would be totally different.
You think it would be like what when you say that?
Well, I mean,
Do you think you'd still be entrenched in
without a doubt.
illegal? You think you
without
would
a doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I know that for a fact. Yeah. If I wouldn't have got married, I promise you that. Yeah, there's no way. Because the influence to draw you in is not money. Trust me, it wasn't like I was going after money and fame, and also it comes along with being on the street life, making that money. I was not that kind of guy. Okay, though my brothers were doing that. If I needed money, I go to my brother.
Right.
I need $10,000. I could go in there and get it.
Right.
He would yell at me, but he would give me $10,000.
Right.
Okay, my brother paid my whole wedding.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't have to pay nothing hardly for my wedding. So I needed money. That was not the issue.
Right.
He'd rather give me $10,000 than to see me even get involved in it.
So he was truly trying to protect you from that life.
Yeah.
Even though he was in it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so interesting to me.
Okay, so if I had a problem, and he would go, let me handle it. I go, no, I can handle my own business.
Right.
He go, no, let me handle it. So he would handle it if it dealt with something that could potentially take my life or put me to prison. I'll go do it.
He would put his life.
Yeah, I'll go do it. You stay home, I'll handle it.
Very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so, but my dad was really, he said to me before he passed away, a couple years before, he said, Gary, I will pay you to get your brothers out of their life. He said, I'm going to go to Louisiana to visit your grandmother. When I come back, you get your brothers out of that life. Well, one was already in prison doing 5 years. Oh. And my oldest one, James, one day he walked in my office. I'm on stage speaking in front of like 100-something people.
Yes.
And my brother walks into a seminar from the hood. This guy from the hood.
Yes.
Right? Walk into a meeting, and I'm on stage, and it threw me off. I was like, whoa, what is he doing here?
Right.
Right. And I did my meeting. I try to stay,
Focused.
focused. So I'm like, man, my brother's here. And normally he'll page me.
Yes.
He walked to a meeting, so I'm thinking, what happened? So I'm on stage doing my talk, motivating people,
Right.
talk about how to manage your money, how to do better financially. People are laughing, but inside I'm going, this meeting's got to end.
Yeah,
I got to
something's
hurry up and
happening.
end
You
it.
need to know
Something's
what's
going
going
on.
on. Right.
So I end the meeting. I shook everybody's hand. As long as I could, my mind, I'm watching my brother, my peripheral vision.
Yes.
He has a serious look on his face. And I finally said, hey, what's going on? He says, I want to work with you. I go, what?
How did you feel when you heard those words?
I thought he was
Did you
joking.
believe it?
No.
Right.
I thought he was joking.
Right.
I go, what? You told me don't start my own business. You told me don't do this. Now here you are in my meeting telling me you want to come work with me.
Yes.
He says, I want to gather life. I go, and I finally, I realized it, is when I went in the parking lot after we sat and talked about an hour after the session ended. Everybody's gone. It's just me and him, my wife.
Right.
We have about a good hour conversation. And I walk outside, and his car was not in the parking lot. And I go, where's your car? He says, I caught the bus out here. Well, I was about an hour away from South Central. Why'd you catch the bus? He said, because I didn't want the police to pull me over.
Wow. So you knew he was committed. He really wanted to be there.
He caught the bus. Just a man with money, cars. He caught the bus to my suburban neighborhood, right? And so I didn't want the police to pull me over. That's when I knew he was serious.
Right.
And I drove him to South Central LA. Obviously took my wife home.
Yes.
Right? This was about 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Drove him to South Central LA. Got his clothes and said, you're going to come stay with me.
Just like that. No questions asked.
Yeah, because when you get out of the game, you don't there's no retirement plan. You don't call somebody and go, I'm retiring.
Right. You got to get out.
You have to get out. If you're going to do it, it has to be that day. So I went and picked him up, got his clothes, and we left South Central LA to never go back. At that point, never again. He said, don't ever take me back there because I got unfinished business.
Which meant he cannot go back.
I should not go back. I can't go visit mama. I can't go visit anybody.
Right. Now, how did that make you feel that he made that choice?
I was so excited because I felt like I did what my dad wanted me to do.
Right.
And by the way, I had nothing to do. I didn't go, okay, James, Dad wants me to get you out of the business.
He came to you.
He would have rejected it. He would have get away from me.
Right. Right.
No, he came to me. Right. So my dad actually believed, I think to his grave, that Gary got my son.
Right, on the right track.
On the right track. It was not the case. He made that decision to do it.
Which is even more powerful.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to coerce him or try to sell him on getting out. He said, I want to make a difference in my life.
Yes, I want to make a difference. And he was serious, and I knew he was serious, and I went and got his clothes, came stay with me. And my wife's so awesome. That's why it's important to have a good spouse.
Right.
Because Pat didn't go, I don't want your brother living here.
Right.
Your brother's she said, okay. Instantly.
Period.
He came and stayed with me. And it's amazing. I went and bought him all business clothes. I don't know what I was going to do with them, right?
Right.
Got him all business clothes, and I gave him some books to read.
Yes.
And I gave him some things to do. No, don't listen. This kind of music.
Homework.
Yeah, exactly. Change your thinking, because thoughts are things.
Absolutely.
I started teaching that. And then next morning I wake up and I hear somebody downstairs in the two-story place. And I heard somebody downstairs, my brother, of course. I hear him going, I am not judged by the number of times I succeed, but by the number of times I'm not judged by the number of times I fail, but the number of times I succeed.
Right.
And the number of times I succeed is in direct proportion to the number of times I fail and keep trying. I'm alive, I'm alert, and I feel great. And I hear this dude downstairs, I go, what the heck? I come downstairs, and he's sitting on the couch, he's suited, on the bottom, and he's reading a book, How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins.
I knew exactly what that was.
And I go, this dude, he went way to the left.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting there going, dude, we're upstairs trying to sleep. When
you wanted to start today.
Today. And that's true. That's what transformation. He's now Elder James Kornegay.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a fantastic story because it shows a legitimacy of your advocacy for your brother. Mm-hmm. That you were saying, okay, you want to make a difference? I'm going to help you to get there and stay there.
Right.
That's reaching back.
Right.
That extends the beauty of your legacy and your family. That's a great thing.
Thank you.
It really, really is.
It really is. And it's a fun transformation to have a older brother that had influence on my life, to shift and say, okay, I'm going to spend time with you. Right. And we spent a good 2 or 3 years together, straight up solid, every single day.
Wow.
In my office. He eventually got into the financial industry as well, long enough to meet his wife. He actually met his wife in the industry.
That's fantastic.
I found service. They've been married now 19 years.
It's fantastic.
And here's the funny part about that, or kind of crazy part.
Right.
The wife that he met in my financial office was a Los Angeles police officer.
Really?
And he's been married to her for 19 years.
Life is a funny circle.
It is, man. It's crazy.
How we close the loop.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the entrepreneurial activities you have right now. So it's the financial services business. Let's talk. What's the website for that also?
Well, it's a private New York Stock Exchange company.
Okay.
And so I'm not privy on this call without corporate approval
Okay.
to give you that company's name,
That's
unfortunately.
okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's also talk about Father Figures Incorporated. I want to hear why you started that and what is Father Figures Incorporated.
Father figure actually came about. It's kind of crazy, Dr. Levi.
Right.
I only have one son, and he doesn't have brothers like I had, you
Right.
know. So
That's Gary number 2.
Gary the second, absolutely right. And so when he was younger, he didn't have 3 brothers in the house to fight with, hang out with,
Right.
play ball with. And I didn't want other men, young dope boys at the time, to
Right.
influence my son
Of course.
to hang out in the neighborhood. Even though we lived in the suburbs,
Right.
the same stuff goes on,
Yes,
by the
it
way.
does. Yes,
okay,
it does.
people don't know that.
Yes.
But the same stuff goes on, just with more money and
Absolutely.
more access.
Right.
And it's not hanging out on the streets. Are you
Right.
with me? It's done covertly.
Exactly.
Okay, drugs, the whole thing.
Everything.
And I didn't want my son to get caught up in that scene. And so I said, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to build a house
Right.
that's attractive to young boys. When they knock on the door,
Right.
they're not going to come and ask my son to come to their house. They're going to want to come to my house.
You're going to stay there.
Exactly. So humongous pool,
Right.
basketball court,
Everything.
recording studio. So I made my house the go-to house.
Right. Right.
Because I wanted the boys to come to my house.
That's a neighborhood house.
The neighborhood house, right? Now, I don't know these kids' parents.
Right.
All I know is they kept saying to me, I don't have a father.
Right.
I don't have a father. I don't have a father. Every young man that came, slept on my floor, my son's friends, they would always say, I don't have a father. Maybe 2 of them had a father.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of unique that even though I'm married with kids, live in this nice cul-de-sac neighborhood,
Right.
my son's friends don't have fathers.
Right.
And they were mostly African-American boys.
Yes.
And one boy said, Miss Kornegay, I don't have a father. Can you be my father?
He said that to you.
Yeah.
That's a very intense statement.
Yeah. I said, well, sure. I'm not your dad, but I'll coach you.
Right.
So I coached Gary and I coached him at the same time.
Really?
And then that's when they came and said, I want to be a father figure.
Right.
A father figure. Yeah, I hear it all the time. You're like a father figure, Mr. Kornegay. The people that I coach in entrepreneurship and mentor,
Yes.
they're men, 23, 24, 30, never had a father.
Right.
Miss Kornegay, you like my father. Man, hold on a second. I'm only 10 years older than you,
Right,
first
right,
of all.
right.
I couldn't even be your father.
Right.
But the coaching and leadership, I was like a father figure to them.
Absolutely.
And that's when I decided to start a not-for-profit organization called Father Figures.
Now, Father Figures, it's been around for how long now?
We actually got our 501c3 3 years ago.
That's fantastic. And how many people have you assisted so far with that program, you said?
I'm going to give you a low number,
Okay.
700.
That's a low number.
That's a low number.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot.
That's pretty fantastic. Again, I'm taken back by the fact that with all your successes, with all that you've been blessed with all that you have, it's nothing for you to say, let me give back, let me do more, let me reach back, let me pull other people up with me. I really think that's the way to live a great life.
Well, yeah. Now, I'll be honest with you. When you're in survival mode, it's I got to eat today.
Right.
And when I started my own business, we didn't have any startup capital.
Right.
I was broke.
Right.
Okay. And I didn't want to go to my brothers and get seed money because that would be basically laundering money,
Right,
as
you
you
don't
know.
want that. Yeah, you
right.
don't
So,
want
no, I strictly did it, bootstrapped it. My wife worked for the Civil as a clerk typist, and her paycheck I used to fund our business.
Right.
I had an EMT job, but my income was just gas money.
Right.
And I quit that the day I got into my own business. I didn't get in my own business and casually get in. I quit my job the first day.
You were committed.
Yeah. The day I got involved in the business, I left my job that day. So I didn't think about, I need some money to start. I'm already in, right?
Period.
I figured out.
Yes.
Great
yes.
mom, great dad. If I needed money, I'd go next door to my mom and dad's house.
Right.
Well, that was not an issue. And I had an entrepreneur dad as well.
Yes.
And so when I started moving up, obviously, the ranks in the financial service industry, and then I started realizing that, you know what? I can impact people more if I give.
Absolutely.
I'm no longer in survival mode.
No.
Right? I got enough. I'm going to eat. I got
Yes.
shelter over my head.
Right.
My kids going to eat. We got clothes on our back. It ain't the fine stuff that I'm seeing on the other life that I
Right.
saw people getting.
Yes.
But I was good. So then you go from a life of survival to a life of contribution. And then
Right.
that's where it gets fun.
Right.
That's where you don't get tired anymore.
Absolutely. I
Because
agree.
now the giving process is kind of weird, but it's like, wow, my dad preached about this.
Right.
But I always thought it was more of a preacher, talking about giving,
Right.
to God,
Right.
not humans.
Right, right.
You give 10% to the Lord. You hear that stuff, but from a natural standpoint, wow, giving is actually fun.
Absolutely. It
And
makes you feel good.
I feel great.
Yes.
And even though I'm in the neighborhood and I get guys pull up on me, hey, sir, it's a nice car you got. I like your car. Hey, can you help a brother out? I need $5. I give it to him. Every time I did that, I felt good.
Yes.
Even though
yes.
sometimes I felt like, man, this guy's trying to work me some money.
Right.
His car didn't really break down again.
Right again.
But every time I did it, I felt really good. I
Right.
go, if I could do that all the time, man,
a good thing.
that's worse.
How does your wife feel about you being such a big-hearted, giving person? Does she join you on that bandwagon to give like that?
Yes.
She does.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
What about your children? What about Gary the second, and what about Kristen?
Yeah.
They're the same because they're looking at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So you set the stage for their lives of what giving really is, especially unconditional giving. So how do they respond to that?
They do the same thing.
They
it's
do.
just in their mind, it's just normal.
Right,
It's not like they're working on giving.
Right.
I have to work on that, man. I need this myself. You know what I'm saying? But their mindset, because obviously money is not an issue in a household
Right.
today, of course, they never even dealt with any struggle financially. Theirs is always like that. I'll never forget one time my son got into it, at the school he went to, high school,
Right.
physical altercation with one of the football players, and that football player dropped the N-word on him.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, not a good thing. So they got in a physical altercation, and that's the first time my son ever got in trouble at school for fighting.
Right.
And I don't condone that, regardless.
Of
But he
course.
got into a situation with a young man, and the guy called me N-word, and they took it to the next level, started fighting. So he came home, got suspended. That young man got suspended. Well, about a month later, my son says, "Dad, do you remember that guy I got in a fight with to call me the N-word at school?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, he's sleeping in his car, Dad. He got kicked out of his house. Can he please come stay with us?"
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
The guy you got in a fight with, you want him to come stay? He says, "Dad, I feel so bad for him. He's sleeping in the car." I go, "Well, how old is he?" He's 16 years old. I go, "Well, give him a call. Tell him to come to my house."
Wow.
So the young man that my son got in a fight with,
Right.
they never got along.
Right.
My son calls him up and says, "Hey, my dad wants to talk to you." So he came to my house, said, "What's going on?" I said, "Me and my parents got into it, and they kicked me out of the house." And
And what was it like for you to meet him and to talk with him like that?
it was
You-
just like
you just open arms?
Yeah, of course. I know beef is another. These young men, we fight all the time,
Right,
They'll
right.
get over it. And so I didn't even talk about that issue. I just dealt with him
Right.
and what he was dealing with. And then I said, "Listen, because you're 16 years old, you can't stay here. I'm going to have to let your parents know that you're here.
Of course.
I will get your mom and dad to come here." So true enough, his mom and dad came, right, and they settled it, and they went back home.
Wow.
And I go, "Gary, that was pretty nice of you to do that, but I just couldn't see him sleep in his car, Dad."
That was great.
Yeah, and they've done that many, many, many times over. Both my kids, yeah.
Well, it shows that you are the reflection of your dad. As your dad was father figure, preacher. You're not a preacher, but you have the well-spokenness of a preacher. You have the eloquence and speech of one. And more importantly, it's real clear that you're talking the talk and walking the walk. And your kids see that.
Right.
They see it, as well as your wife. In closing, I'd like to know, what would you say are the top 5 things that people should keep in mind as they live their lives if they want to really maximize their lives? For example, the mission of this show is maximize your life with mindful and strategic choices. What would you say are the 5 things you'd like our listening viewership to know that you, as a great entrepreneur, as a great man, as a phenomenal human being, as a humanitarian, as a philanthropist, I want to hear you tell our audience, and I want to hear, what are the 5 top things that you think someone should think about or focus to create the lives that they want to have?
Okay, the first one, okay, I don't know we got no time, but I'm going to take it there, okay?
Yes.
The first one is you have to believe that you are in control. Nobody on the outside, okay, can touch you.
Right.
You are in control of everything. And once you get the power back to know that you're the author of your own future,
Right.
and you take responsibility and say, "I'm going to change this. I'm going to make
Right.
this happen to my
Right.
benefit and the benefit of other people," that's really where transformation takes place. When you psychologically go, "I own this. I got this."
Right.
It's really not what happens to you. It's what happens within you.
Absolutely.
Are you with me? And it's
Absolutely.
really a mental shift.
Right.
It's not a finance. If I get money, I'll be better. If I get this, I'll be better. If I get the girl, if I get the divorce, if I get
Internal
married.
transformation.
It's internal transfer. That's step 1, is to realize that you're in total control,
Right.
okay, of everything. And your thoughts are things.
Yes.
your thoughts are real. It's not a joke.
Right.
Okay, it's real. I know people say that all the time. You watch these different shows on TV about the law of attraction. It's real.
It is real.
It's very real. And so if you're thinking bad thoughts all the time, well, it's me, why it's always happened to me,
Right.
and then the law of attraction says I'm going to keep that going because you seem to embrace that.
Absolutely.
So I think the first one is to make sure that
You believe, and that you know that you're in control.
That's right.
And believe it.
That's right.
And the second, as you said so well, was to
I said thoughts are things.
thoughts are things.
Your thoughts are very important, very powerful.
I got to really thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I want to let everyone know that on my website, on Facebook, and on the website, we're going to put up the other 3 things that Mr. Kornegay is going to share with us so that you will know those who have all 5. So please be sure to join us on my website, drleviharrison.com, as well as on YouTube. And I want to remind everyone about about an app called the Prayer Corner by a really great friend of ours. It's called the Prayer Corner, the Prayer Room. It's a great app, so you should go there and check that out. I really want to thank Mr. Kornegay for being this phenomenal, inspiring man that he is. I feel like I'm a better human being that you here today. So I want to really thank you for that.
I appreciate you.
You spoke from a place of authenticity, of truth, and more importantly, from the heart. So thank you
for
very
the
much.
opportunity.
It was a blessing.
Dr. Levi, I look forward to building a long-lasting relationship.
We're going to do it by the grace of God. It's all going to happen.
Yes, sir.
So I want to thank Mr. Kornegay for being with us. I want to thank our engineer, Tony Sweet, and of course, my manager, Janet Rodriguez, who's an extraordinary, inspiring woman who just makes things happen. So this is Dr. Levi. I want to thank all of you. Have a great, great holiday. I look forward to being here next week with you. Remember, we want you to maximize your life with mindful, strategic choices. Determine your destiny that way.